Alright, hello my fellow risers. We have to organize this, and I want you to be with me when I organize this. But let's read a little bit now. Alright, yeah, let's read a bit now. Okay. Smart heuristics. Okay, so we had just started it. We had read already the introduction from John Brockman, the editor. Let's get up the correct thing. Alright, here we are. Hey, big dog. Okay, we need some more light. How you doing? We're gonna go for a walk after I make a little headway in this. You can stay here, Neo, if you want. Alright, well, I'm closing the door. You want to come in? What do you want to do? No? Okay. Alright, unlock your mind. From the best-selling authors of Thinking Fast and Slow, The Black Swan, so Kahneman, Taleb, whatever, and Stumbling on Happiness, I'm guessing Dan Gilbert, comes a cutting-edge exploration of the mysteries of rational thought, decision-making, intuition, morality, willpower, problem-solving, prediction, forecasting, unconscious behavior, and beyond. Edited by John Brockman, publisher of Edge.org, the world's smartest website, says The Guardian. Thinking presents original ideas by today's leading psychologists, neuroscientists, and philosophers who are radically expanding our understanding of human thought. Daniel Kahneman on the power and pitfalls of human intuition and unconscious thinking. Daniel Gilbert on desire, prediction, and why getting what we want doesn't always make us happy. Nassim Nicholas Taleb on the limitations of statistics in guiding decision-making. Vilayanur Ramachandran on the scientific underpinnings of human nature. Simon Baron Cohen on the startling effects of testosterone on the brain. Daniel C. Dennett on decoding the architecture of the normal human mind. Sarah Jane Blakemore on mental disorders and the crucial developmental phase of adolescence. Jonathan Haidt, Sam Harris, and Roy Baumeister on the science of morality, ethics, and the emerging synthesis of evolutionary and biological thinking. And finally, the guy we're reading right now, Gigerenzer on rationality and what informs our choices. At the beginning of the 20th century, the father of modern science fiction, H.G. Wells, said in his writings on politics, "If we want to have an educated citizenship in a modern technological society, we need to teach them three things: reading, writing, and statistical thinking." At the beginning of the 21st century, how far have we gotten with this program? How far have we gotten with this program? In our society, we teach most citizens reading and writing from the time they are children, but not statistical thinking. John Allen Paulos has claimed this phenomenon innumeracy. Has called this phenomenon innumeracy. There are many stories documenting this problem. For instance, there was the weather forecaster who announced on American TV that if the probability that it will rain on Saturday is 50%, and the probability that it will rain on Sunday is 50%, the probability that it will rain over the weekend is 100%. Not true. In another recent case reported by New Scientist, an inspector in the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, visited a restaurant in Salt Lake City famous for its quiches made from 4 fresh eggs. She told the owner that according to FDA research, every fourth egg has salmonella bacteria, so the restaurant should only use 3 eggs in a quiche. We can laugh about these examples because we easily understand the mistakes involved, but there are more serious issues. When it comes to medical and legal issues, we need exactly the kind of education that H.G. Wells was asking for, and we haven't gotten it. What interests me is the question of how humans learn to live with uncertainty. Before the scientific revolution, determinism was a strong ideal. Religion brought about a denial of uncertainty, and many people knew that their kin or their race was exactly the one that God had favored. They also thought they were entitled to get rid of competing ideas and the people who propagated them. How does a society change from this condition into one in which we understand that there is this fundamental uncertainty? Great question. How do we avoid the illusion of certainty to produce the understanding that everything, whether it be a medical test or deciding on the best cure for a particular kind of cancer, has a fundamental element of uncertainty? This doesn't sound unlike what Tayeb might say, right? For instance, I've worked with physicians and physician-patient associations to try to teach the acceptance of uncertainty and the reasonable way to deal with it. To try to teach the acceptance of uncertainty. Doesn't that just make your heart, churn? Just this idea that, holy shit, I'm living in the past. We talk so big, but we actually still have to learn the acceptance of uncertainty. People are still like, are you 100% sure? Oh, what do you mean you're only 75% sure? What are we going to do? How are we going to get to 100? Take HIV testing as an example. Brochures published by the Illinois Department of Health say that testing positive for HIV means that you have the virus. Thus, if you are an average person who is not in a particular risk group but tests positive for HIV, this might lead you to choose to commit suicide or move to California or do something else quite drastic. But AIDS information in many countries is running on the illusion of certainty. I don't have anything to underline. It reminds me, we were at the vet the other day, and we do a test. The vet does a test on Neo, and it comes back positive that he has some tick-related illness, or at least the antibodies for it. And my dad asks, does that test give false positives? I don't think there was a response. I think we moved on. The answer would be yes. But I don't think he was maybe asking literally. He was probably asking the doctor to sort of tell us what are the chances that this is actually a problem, you know? What do you call it? Not the reliability of the test, Alright, I'm not going to find that right now. Oh no, I need to know now. This isn't working. Like the rigidity, the rigor, the specificity. Aha. Aha. So in this case, he was asking about the No, he was asking about the specificity. Yeah. Very good. I'm glad we looked that up, aren't you? Alright, so he was asking about the specificity. But AIDS information in many countries is running on the illusion of certainty. The actual situation is rather like this. If you have 10,000 people who are in no risk group, one of them will have the virus and will test positive with practical certainty. Among the other, so that would be this dude, let's say. Among the other 9,999, another one will test positive, but it's a false positive. So that, let's say, is this dude. In this case, we have two who test positive, these two dudes, although only one of them actually has the virus. Knowing about these very simple things can prevent serious disasters, of which there is, unfortunately, a record. Still, medical societies, individual doctors, and individual patients either produce the illusion of uncertainty or want it. Everyone knows Benjamin Franklin's adage that there's nothing certain in the world except death and taxes. But the doctors I interviewed tell me something different. They say, if I would tell my patients what we don't know, they would get very nervous. So it's better not to tell them. If I would tell my patients what we don't know, they'd get very nervous. So best not to tell them. Thus, this is one important area in which there is a need to get people, including individual doctors or lawyers in court, to be mature citizens and to help them understand and communicate risks. Representation of information is important. In the case of many so-called cognitive illusions, the problem results from difficulties that arise from getting along with probabilities. The problem largely disappears the moment you give the person the information in natural frequencies. Okay. So exciting. So, that book I just pulled, they talk about this, and go check out Sprat, my Sprat videos. We still haven't finished this book. I think we're halfway through. Yeah, halfway through. But he had some great stuff about how once you put it in a way, once you frame things, or as I would say, fit things. In fact, all you need is the word fit. Because to fit means to frame things in a way that are consistent with our good mechanisms and won't trigger our not so good mechanisms. I'm looking for the stamp thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're just going to let Dr. G explain it. Come on. Last chance. Best chance, bro. Probability and randomness. Beliefs and evidence. Okay, not gonna find it. Anyway, we'll let Dr. G explain it, bro. Alright, Dr. G. The problem largely disappears the moment you give the person the information in natural frequencies. You basically put the mind back in a situation where it's much easier to understand these probabilities. We can prove that natural frequencies can facilitate actual computations, and have known for a long time that representations, whether they be probabilities, frequencies, or odds, have an impact on the human mind. There are very few theories about how this works. I'll give you a couple examples relating to medical care. In the United States and many European countries, women who are 40 years old are told to participate in mammography screening. Say that a woman takes her first mammogram and it comes out positive. She might ask the physician, "What does that mean? Do I have that breast cancer? Or are my chances of having it 99%, 95%, or 90%, or only 50%? What do we know at this point? I have put the same question to radiologists who have done mammography screening for 20 or 25 years, including chiefs of departments. A third said they would tell this woman that given a positive mammogram, her chance of having breast cancer is 90%. A third, including department chiefs of departments, have said, yeah, I tell her 90% chance she has it when she asks me what her positive test result means. However, what happens when they get additional relevant information? The chance that a woman in this age group has cancer is roughly 1%. If a woman has breast cancer, the probability that she will test positive on a mammogram, if a woman has breast cancer, the probability that she will test positive on a mammogram is 90%. If a woman does not have breast cancer, the probability that she nevertheless tests positive is some 9%. In technical terms, you have a base rate of 1%, a sensitivity or hit rate of 90%, and a false positive rate of about 9%. So how do you answer this woman who's just tested positive for cancer? As I just said, about a third of the physicians think it's 90%. Another third thinks the answer should be something between 50% and 80%. And another third thinks the answer is between 1% and 10%. Again, these are professionals with many years of experience. It's hard to imagine a larger variability in physicians' judgments, between 1% and 90%. And if patients knew about this variability, they would not be very happy. This situation is typical of what we know from laboratory experiments, namely that when people encounter probabilities, which are technically conditional probabilities, their minds are clouded when they try to make an inference. Well, we just don't have the mechanisms for it. But he's about to tell me, no, dumbass, are you not fucking listening? We do have the mechanisms for it. It's just that you have to present it in the right way to slap those mechanisms. You're right. You are absolutely right. I'm sorry. I am a dumbass. Let me change what I said. It's just that those mechanisms aren't being slapped for it. It's not that it's clouded. It's just that those mechanisms aren't being slapped for it. What we do is to teach these physicians tools that change the representation so that they can see through the problem. We don't send them to a statistics course, since they wouldn't have the time to go in the first place, and most likely they wouldn't understand it because they would be taught probabilities again. But how can we help them to understand the situation? Let's change the representation using natural frequencies, as if the physician would have observed these patients, him or herself. One can communicate the same information in the following much more simple way. Think about 100 women. One of them has breast cancer. This was the 1%. She likely tests positive. That's the 90%. Out of 99 who do not have breast cancer, another 9 or 10 will test positive. So we have 1 in 9 or 10 who test positive. Out of the whole group. Gotcha. How many of them actually has cancer? 1 out of 10. That's not 90%. That's not 50%. That's one. Oh, that's 1 out of 10. Oh, okay. So it wasn't yeah, it was 1% was, I had misunderstood, but I did read it correctly, so you may have understood. Yeah, that she actually has cancer is roughly 1%. Very good. Anyway, so while they're out there thinking a third is thinking it's about 90, a third's thinking it's between 50 and 80, the true answer is 9. And this was discussed in the Pinker thing, which we will get back to after the two books that we're working on now. Here we have a method that enables physicians to see through the fog just by changing the representation, turning their innumeracy into insight. Many of these physicians have carried this innumeracy around for decades and have tried to hide it. When we interview them, they obviously admit it, saying, "I don't know what to do with these numbers. I always confuse these things." Here we have a chance to use very simple tools to help those patients and physicians understand what the risks are and which enable them to have a reasonable reaction to what to do. If you take the perspective of a patient, that this test means that there is a 90% chance you have cancer, you can imagine what emotions set in, emotions that do not help her to reason the right way. But informing her that only 1 out of 10 women who test positive actually has cancer would help her to have a cooler attitude and to make more reasonable decisions. Prostate cancer is another disease for which we have good data. In the United States and European countries, doctors advise men aged 40 to 50 to take a PSA test. This is a prostate cancer test that is very simple, requiring just a bit of blood, so many people do it. The interesting thing is that most of the men I talk to have no idea of the benefits and costs of this test. It's an example of decision making based on trusting your doctor or on rumors. But interestingly, if you read about the test on the internet or in independent medical societies like Cochrane.com, or read the reports of various physicians' agencies who give recommendations for screening, then you find out that the benefits and costs of prostate cancer screening are roughly the following. Mortality reduction is the usual goal of medical testing, yet there's no proof that prostate cancer screening reduces mortality. On the other hand, there is proof that if we distinguish between people who do not have prostate cancer and those who do, there is a good likelihood that it will do harm. The test produces a number of false positives. If you do it often enough, there's a good chance of getting a high level on the test, a so-called positive result, even though you don't have cancer. It's like a car alarm that goes off all the time. For those who actually have cancer, surgery can result in incontinence or impotence, which are serious consequences that stay with you for the rest of your life. For that reason, the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force says very calmly in a report that men should not participate in PSA screening because there is no proof in mortality reduction, only likely harm. It is very puzzling that in a country where a 12-year-old knows baseball statistics... Wait, so what is the harm of having prostate cancer, though? I don't get it. Oh, because there's nothing you can do about it? I don't get it. I don't get it, but I don't think I'm going to right now. Because we're just not investing in that right now. It's very puzzling that in a country where a 12-year-old knows baseball statistics, adults don't know the simplest statistics about tests, diseases, and the consequences that may cause them serious damage. Why is this? One reason, of course, is that the cost-benefit computations for doctors are not the same as for patients. One cannot simply accuse doctors of knowing things or not caring about patients. One cannot simply accuse doctors of knowing things or not caring about patients, but a doctor has to face the possibility that if he or she doesn't advise someone to participate in the PSA test and that person gets prostate cancer, then the patient may turn up at his doorstep with a lawyer. The second thing is that doctors are members of a community with professional pride, and for many of them, not detecting cancer is something they don't want to have on their records. Third, there are groups of doctors who have very clear financial incentives to perform certain procedures. A good doctor would explain this to a patient, but leave the decision to the patient. Many patients don't see this situation in which doctors find themselves, but most doctors will recommend the test. But who knows? Autopsy studies show that 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 men who die a natural death has prostate cancer. Everyone has some cancer cells. If everyone underwent PSA testing and cancer were detected, then these poor guys would spend the last years or decades of their lives living with severe bodily injury. These are very simple facts. Thus, dealing with probabilities also relates to the issue of understanding the psychology of how we make rational decisions. According to decision theory, rational decisions are made according to the so-called expected utility calculus, or some variant thereof, which is garbage, decision theory. I don't know why that's not like capitalized. He's just saying like how we currently see decision making. Okay, but that's no longer how we see decision making. In fact, so economists loved this utility calculus, right? The chance of having it, or the chance of doing a thing, or the chance of being able to do a thing, or the chance of getting a reward times the value of the reward is the utility, and then you compare that to whatever the other option is. Not how it happens. Economists were like, oh, that's how it happens. Okay, well, what does the decision lab tell us? Well, the decision lab tells us about what Kahneman told us. Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in economics for going like that to economists and going, nope. Prospect theory describes how individuals make decisions under uncertainty, emphasizing that people tend to prioritize avoiding losses over acquiring equivalent gains, called loss aversion. Bop, 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 bop. Anyway, check that out. Okay. And I was just looking that up because someone called me to ask for advice about a major life decision, about moving to a city and possibly leaving a relationship behind, or whatever that might do to the relationship. So immediately I'm sending him prospect theory, so that he can be aware that, he can be reminded that we're not rational, and how we weight loss versus gains, because we don't even, like, losing $50 and winning $50 are not equivalent to us, okay? Losing $50 is much worse to us than getting $50 is good to us, okay? According to decision theory, rational decisions are made according to the so-called expected utility calculus, or some variant thereof. In economics, for instance, the idea is that if you make an important decision, whom to marry or what stock to buy, for example, you look at all the consequences of each decision, attach a probability to these consequences, attach a value, and sum them up, choosing the optimal highest expected value or expected utility. This theory, which is very widespread, maintains that people behave in this way when they make their decisions. The problem is, where are you at? That's hold on. Don't tell me. I'm gonna guess. I don't know what I'm gonna base my guess on, but first of all, which time zone are you? Where are you in a? So 2 p.m. You said it's 10 p.m. So 8-hour difference. So we're talking like Bulgaria, so Eastern Europe. You could also be, I don't know, like It could be some kind of Asian. I mean, hold on. I'm not gonna look at the chat anymore. I want to see if I can, because I don't know whether you said already. Steve Gaming. I mean, this is such a ridiculous activity because I have nothing to base this on. I'm trying not to look while also using my keyboard. Oh wait, I don't think I was right about Bulgaria, because isn't that like a half-hour thing? Okay, so... Oh no, I was right about Bulgaria. Okay. Otherwise, I'm just gonna assume you're not in any of these places because your name's Steve. I mean, that could just be your fun American internet name. Anyway, I'm gonna go... Steve. Alright, I've got no way to make this guess. I'm going to go... I am going to go... I mean, I should stack the odds in my favor and do a high population country. I am going to go... None of these is jumping out at me. Maybe you just try, like, I'm just gonna go Bulgaria. Not Bulgaria, dang. Literally close. Okay, guess close. Bulgaria close. Not Bulgaria. No, my name is actually for animation travel. I'm not in USA. Okay, tell me now. My guess was Bulgaria. All right, we'll see that. Okay, so okay, so the problem is that we know from experimental studies that people don't behave this way. There is a nice story that illustrates the whole conflict. A famous decision theorist who once taught at Columbia got an offer from a rival university and was struggling with the question of whether to stay where he was or accept a new post. His friend, a philosopher, took him aside and said, "What's the problem? Just do what you write about and what you teach your students. Maximize your expected utility." The decision theorist, exasperated, responded, "Come on, get serious." That's funny. Turkey. I did not even consider that. So, because... Right, I had to include all that because it's daylight savings time. Right. Okay, I want so badly, because of the hindsight bias, to say that if I had considered that, I would have gone Turkey. But I'm lying to you because the name is Steve. Anyway, alright, Turkey, very cool. I want to go to Turkey. I want to go to Turkey so badly, and I wanted to do it when I was there in Europe, but anyway, let's get a big stream so that I have money to do an easy, comfortable Turkey trip and hire someone to take care of my uncle while I'm gone. Alright, so where were we? Decisions can often be modeled by what I call fast and frugal heuristics. Sometimes they're faster and sometimes they're more frugal. Deciding which of two jobs to take, for instance, may involve consequences that are incommensurate from the point of view of the person making the decision. The new job may give you more money and prestige, but it might leave your children in tears since they don't want to move for fear that they would lose their friends. Some economists may believe that you can bring everything in the same common denominator, but others can't do this. A person could end up making a decision for one dominant reason. We make decisions based on bounded rationality. I thought that was her term. I mean, his term. No, her term. Because I thought it was a him, but it's actually a woman. We're not going to go into that. Let's just keep reading. Can't just keep... We are a little bit. Because we just want to know whether she came up with that term. Mazarin Banaji. She has an essay in another one of Brockman's books. This explains everything. Our bounded rationality, page 94. And also, I just feel like, I don't know. Oh, okay. For this reason, my candidate for the most deeply satisfying explanation of recent decades is the idea of bounded rationality. The idea that human beings are smart compared to other species, but not smart enough by their own standards, including behaving in line with basic axioms of rationality. And this is now a well-honed observation with a deep empirical foundation. Okay, hell yeah, I'll tell you. And you know what we need? We need a text, a mission statement text. This or my? Oh, I think they're asking about mine. You can't plug your channel on my stream. I mean, you can, but let me explain my channel first. So this channel, and then Steve's gonna talk about his. This channel is about understanding the mind. You are a mind. You don't understand how your mind works, because even as Steve admitted earlier, although he's interested in these questions, he knows nothing about neuroscience. We have information about how your mind works, about how you think and how you fail to think without noticing it. So we want to learn how that works, spread that information, and figure out how to spread that information together. So that's the mission. Watch this channel to learn how your mind works, and also be inspired to learn how your mind works. B, to participate, because I need your help. Lavani, please. I need your help developing explanations for the people. Okay? Alright, that's good. Alright, Steve, your turn. I'm going to keep reading. Okay, so we're reading from Thinking. We're reading about smart heuristics. In fact, if you want to know what this channel is about, listen to this. We make decisions based on bounded rationality, not the unbounded rationality of the decision maker modeled after an omniscient God. But bounded rationality is also not of one kind. There is a group of economists, for example, who look at the bounds or constraints in the environment that affect how a decision is made. This study is called Optimization Under Constraints. And I am curious about your channel, so I do really want you to tell us. And many Nobel Prizes have been awarded in this area. Using the concept of bounded rationality from this perspective, you realize that an organism has neither unlimited resources nor unlimited time. So one asks, given these constraints, what's the optimal solution? There's a second group, which doesn't look at bounds in the environment, but bounds in demand. These include many psychologists and behavioral economists who find that people often take in only limited information and sometimes make decisions based on just one or two criteria. Why does it sound like Dr. G doesn't agree with that? Because that's what we would say. But these colleagues don't analyze the environmental influences on the task. They think that for a priori reasons, people make bad choices because of a bias, an error, or a fallacy. They look at constraints in the mind. Okay, well then we're right in the middle. And so Dr. G would love what we have to say, which is if you look at every mental mechanism as a pairing of conditions and consequences, if then, or you can call it an IT as an acronym, then obviously there can be a problem with the actual pairings, but also the problem is that we're not in the right conditions to trigger the pairings that we want to trigger, because you have to actually meet the condition for the given pairing in order for it to produce its consequence. Anyway, it's just a more false dilemma bullshit, isn't it? Neither of these concepts takes advantage of what the human mind takes advantage of, that the bounds in the mind are not unrelated to the bounds in the environment. The bounds get together. Herbert Simon developed a wonderful analogy based on a pair of scissors, where one blade is cognition and the other is the structure of the environment, or the task. You only understand how human behavior functions if you look at both sides. Okay, very cool. She also mentions Herbert Simon. The cognitive scientist and Nobel laureate in economics Herbert Simon put one stake in the ground through the study of information processing and artificial intelligence, showing that people and organizations alike adopt principles of behavior such as satisficing that constrain them to decent but not the best decisions. So, and when was this Herbert Simon guy? Like, should we read Herbert Simon, or is it okay just reading his you know what I'm trying to say? First of all, the other person that we hurt, and we want to meet her so badly, because she reminds us of our Auntie Pornima. So she's great, and let's see what Herbert Simon looks like. Oh, okay. Well, I think it's okay if we just read stuff that quoted him. Oh, so it's his thing, bounded rationality. His primary research interest was decision-making within organizations, and he is best known for the theories of bounded rationality and satisficing. I just got fucking giddy, bro. Because bounded rationality is not unlike it theory. And so if this is old as hell, there's bounded rationality and satisficing, and the homies are still talking about it, we're about to hit them with something fantastic. So we have to email. Well, we're not ready. Let's get some followers. Let's get a good stream. And then we'll start contacting people. Oh, and let's go to the neuroscience conference this year in San Diego. Who's going with me? Evolutionary thinking gives us a useful framework for asking some interesting questions that are not often posed. For instance, when I look at a certain heuristic, like when people make a decision based on one good reason while ignoring all others, I must ask in what environmental structures that heuristic works and where it doesn't work. Hell no. Is that a compatriot of yours? I want to, but I'm still curious about your channel explanation. It's a gaming animation channel. What would your mission statement be? Oh boy! Hell yeah, bro. And he's in Munich. So let's see. Where is, here we go. Fine. He was in Ankara. Okay. Maybe that's where he's from, or maybe not. But okay, he's a compatriot of yours. His early research career at Max Planck. Oh boy, cool. But what does he do? Is it cellular? Oh. Spine degeneration, traumatic brain injury. Oh, okay, yeah. This isn't someone I would have heard of because he doesn't seem to look at cognition. Okay. So he's not a cognitive neuroscientist. He does the hard stuff. and also the less obviously relevant to daily life stuff. But there he is. And we're glad that he is working on the mind, even if it is the cellular stuff or whatever it is. Okay, awesome. I must ask in what environmental structures that heuristic works and where it does not work. This is a question about ecological rationale, about the adaptation of heuristics, and it is very different from what we see in the study of cognitive illusions in social psychology and of judgment decision making, where any kind of behavior that suggests that people ignore information or just use one or two pieces of information is coded as a bias. That approach is non-ecological. That is, it doesn't relate the mind to its environment. I'm sorry, I gotta go get Oh, Steve, you gotta join the team then, bro. Okay, it may be literally to make money, and that's great. But also, yeah, okay, but literally, so that's so great. So you gotta get on the team, big bro. I know no Turkish words. Oh, I watched a Turkish series, though, called Wolf. It's a police thing. Anyway. Boru. Boru. I do know a Turkish word. I know how to say wolf. Boru. Is that good? Boru. Is that good? Anyway, so my mom's on my back about writing a children's book. I'm not really ready to write a children's book, but between you, me, and Sarah's sister, Sarah's properly on the team, and her sister were working on it, and she does medical illustrations, so we already can create like a 3-page explanation for kids. Are you laughing at my pronunciation? Have you seen that series? Cool. So we can create like a 3-page explanation of like what the mind is, and so instead of it, like Inside Out, right? Instead of having you as the central character in your mind, because that is not accurate, we can show how you are actually distributed across all of these different competing agents, you know, with different access to information, with different objectives, and so on. I'm getting a little bit too excited, so let me go get a beer. I know it's late for you. Let me go get a beer. Oh my gosh, Homo economicus. Yeah, I'm going to need a beer because this is getting so exciting. Oh, we're going to be able to finish this. Let me get a beer and we're going to knock this out in about 20 minutes. Buru! Alright, let's knock this out. Alright, here we go. And I'm going to try not to interrupt because basically he's going to say everything I think anyway. Okay, so this is a question about ecological rationale, about the adaptation of heuristics, and it is very different from what we see in the study of cognitive illusions in social psychology and of judgment decision making, where any kind of behavior that suggests that people ignore information or just use one or two pieces of information is coded as a bias. That approach is non-ecological. That is, it doesn't relate the mind to its environment. An important future direction in cognitive science is to understand that human minds are embedded in an environment. This is not the usual way that many psychologists and of course many economists think about it. There are many psychological theories about what's in the mind, and there may be all kinds of computations and motives in the mind, but there's very little ecological thinking about what certain cognitive strategies or emotions do for us and what problems they solve. One of the visions I have is to understand not only how cognitive heuristics work and in which environments it is smart to use them, but also what role emotions play in our judgment. We have gone through a kind of liberation in the last years. There are many books by Antonio Damasio and others that make a general claim that emotions are important for cognitive functions and are not just there to interrupt, distract, or mislead you. Actually, emotions can do certain things that cognitive strategies can't do, but we have very little understanding of how that works. I do have to say something. I have to tell you that that's why I don't use the word, I mean, I may, so that you understand me. But I avoid it. Use the word bias, right? I call it mallet. A mallet, it's an if-then mechanism in the mind that is not adaptive to the current situation. Okay? And also there's this stupid idea that, don't be biased. You have to think rationally. What are you talking about? With what? There's no rational system. All there are heuristics. And some of them are adapted to the given situation, or adaptive, and some of them are not. Do you believe that consciousness exists? Steve, can you handle this? Steve asked me this question. That's a great question. It's just that if I try to answer it, I'm not going to make it through this. So I want to see Steve and Lalvani chat a little bit about consciousness while I get through this. So the question is, do you believe that consciousness exists? And the answer is no. Or is it just a computation which can be controlled, like what Neuralink is doing? I don't understand I don't understand the option of, is it a computation that can be... Oh yeah, absolutely. Another device. The environment controls, in a sense, the computations, some of which we consider consciousness. Anyway, no, let me not get into it. But you are onto something. I am definitely an illusionist, is what we are called. Okay, to give a simple example, imagine Homo economicus. Okay, so he's not explaining that. Homo economicus is what y'all think y'all are. You think that you're these rational, good, utility optimizing decision makers. And you're not. We are not, and we're not going to be. Okay? Anyway, so to give a simple example, imagine Homo economicus in mate search, trying to find a woman to marry. According to standard theory, Homo economicus, and so it's like a fun name, instead of Homo sapiens, it's this mythical species that we think we are. Homo economicus. We are not Homo economicus, we're Homo sapiens. Or as I like to say, Homo arrogans. Anyway, according to standard theory, Homo economicus would have to find out all the possible options and all the possible consequences of marrying each one of them. He would also look at the probabilities of various consequences of marrying each of them, whether the woman would still talk to him after they're married, whether she'd take care of their children, whatever is important to him, and the utilities of each of these. Homo economicus would have to do tons of research to avoid just coming up with subjective probabilities, and after many years of research he'd probably find out that his final choice had already married another person who didn't do these computations and actually just fell in love with her. Herbert Simon's idea of satisfying, I think he means satisficing, because Herbert Simon doesn't have an idea of satisfying, but I'm reluctant to just dismiss this as a typo immediately. See, it's satisficing is a decision-making strategy or cognitive heuristic that entails searching through the available alternatives until an acceptability threshold is met, without necessarily maximizing any specific objective. That's so funny, dude. I've got a word for that. What is the word? I haven't thought about this in so long. Threshing. Instead of saying that you're thinking about something, you're threshing. So you're humoring, considering, entertaining the possibilities until you reach some threshold of confidence. And then you go with that. Damn, dude, I came up with satisfying. That's so exciting. I completely forgot about threshing. Because I came up with three words for thinking. Well, I didn't come up... Well, one of them is thinking, and I did not come up with that. Thinking is an actual, like, controlled thing with standards and feedback, and it's systematic and blah, blah, blah. But usually what we do is we thresh or we thrain. Threshing, you play with the things until you reach some threshold of acceptability or whatever. Thraining is when you just let one thought lead to the other. And there's no judging or whatever. Or part of the train of thoughts can be judgments. That's cool, bro. Good job, Eris. Alright, so Herbert Simon's idea of, again, it says satisfying, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to say satisficing. Herbert Simon's idea of satisficing solves that problem. A satisfier, alright, maybe not. Herbert Simon's idea of satisfying solves that problem. A satisfier searching for a mate would have an aspiration level. Once that aspiration is met, as long as it is not too high, he will find the partner and the problem is solved. But satisfying is also a purely cognitive mechanism. After you make your choice, you might see someone come around the corner who looks better, and there's nothing to prevent you from dropping your wife or your husband and going off with the next one. By the way, I think it would be I think it's Brockman's error, the editor, because I think this might have been spoken, and maybe he just didn't hear that the guy was using satisficing. I don't know. Here we see one function of emotions. Love, whether it be romantic love or love for our children, helps most of us to create a commitment necessary to make us stay with and take care of our spouses and families. Emotions can perform functions that are similar to those that cognitive building blocks of heuristics. Emotions can perform functions that are similar to those that cognitive building blocks of heuristics perform. Disgust, for example, keeps you from eating lots of things and makes food choice much simpler. Or keeps you away from immoral people, right? It's the same disgust. Same insular activity. Insula. Disgust, for example, keeps you from eating lots of things and makes food choice much simpler, and other emotions do similar things. Still, we have very little understanding of how decision theory links with the theory of emotion, and how we develop a good vocabulary of building blocks necessary for making decisions. This is one direction in which it is important to investigate in the future. Another simple example of how heuristics are useful can be seen in the following thought experiment. Assume you want to study how players catch balls that come in from a high angle, like in baseball, cricket, or soccer, because you want to build a robot that can catch them. The traditional approach, which is much like optimization under constraints, would be to try to give your robot the complete representation of its environment and the most expensive computation machinery you can afford. You might feed your robot a family of parabolas because thrown balls have parabolic trajectories, with the idea that the robot needs to find the right parabola in order to catch the ball. Or you feed him measurement instruments that can measure the initial distance, the initial velocity, and the initial angle the ball was thrown or kicked. You're still not done, because in the real world, balls are not flying parabolas, so you need instruments that can measure the direction and the speed of the wind at each point of the ball's flight to calculate its final trajectory and its spin. It's a very hard problem. But this is one way to look at it. A very different way to approach this is to ask if there is a heuristic that a player could actually use. By the way, heuristic means shortcut, mental shortcut. And I should have said that earlier. A very different way to approach this is to ask if there is a heuristic that a player could actually use to solve this problem without making any of these calculations, or only very few. Experimental studies have shown that actual players use a quite simple heuristic that I call the gaze heuristic. So I think we only have 2 more pages. Oh no, 4 more? 4 more pages, and then I'm going to respond to that discussion. about consciousness. Or maybe just process it. Maybe I won't have a response. Okay, a very different way to approach this is to ask if there is a heuristic that a player could actually use to solve this problem without making any of these calculations, or only very few. Experimental studies have shown that actual players use a quite simple heuristic that I call the gaze heuristic. When a ball comes in high, a player starts running and fixates his eyes on the ball. The heuristic is that you adjust your running speed so that the angle of the gaze, the angle between the eye and the ball, remains constant. I actually don't know what that angle, the eye and the ball. I don't get that. But we just read that in the previous chapter, didn't we? Anyway. Or in the previous essay. So the heuristic is that you adjust your running speed so that the angle of the gaze, the angle between the eye and the ball, remains constant. If you make the angle constant, the ball will come down to you and it will catch you. Or at least it will hit you. This heuristic only pays attention to one variable, the angle of gaze, and can ignore all the other causal relevant variables and achieve the same goal much faster, more frugally, and with less chances for error. Because when you do those big calculations, because your systems are shit, you're creating a lot of opportunities to get this calculation or that one wrong. Or to get something wrong. This illustrates that we can do the science of calculation by looking always at what the mind does, the heuristics and the structures of environments, and how minds change the structures of environments. In this case, the relationship between the ball and oneself is turned into a simple linear relationship on which the player acts. This is an example of a smart heuristic, which is part of the adaptive toolbox that has evolved in humans. Hold on, I want to see an image of this angle. Ah, great. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. Okay, so when a ball comes in high, a player fixates his gaze on the ball, starts running, and adjusts the speed so that the angle of gaze remains constant. So So it's the angle like between his forehead and his line of sight. That's what's remaining constant. I gotcha. All the relevant information is contained in one variable, the angle of gaze. That's great. We'll leave that up. In this case, the relationship between the ball and oneself is turned into a simple linear relationship on which the player acts. This is an example of a smart heuristic, which is part of the adaptive toolbox that has evolved in humans. Many of these heuristics are also present in other animals. For instance, a recent study showed that when dogs catch frisbees, they use the same gaze heuristic. My dog does it. My dog, he glances and like, oh, okay, I think I know where that's gonna go. And he just runs to that spot and then like looks around waiting for it to fall near him. And sometimes it'll just knock him on the nose because he's pretty good at it. Heuristics are also useful in very important practical ways relating to economics. So what would his heuristic be? I don't know what the heuristic is. To illustrate, I'll give you a short story about our research on a heuristic concerning the stock market. All I read was consciousness. Or I don't know. One very smart and simple heuristic is called the recognition heuristic. Here's a demonstration. Which of the following two cities has more inhabitants, Hanover or Bielefeld? I picked these two German cities assuming that you don't know very much about Germany. Most people will think it's Hanover because of the availability heuristic, right? Of course you're going to think it's Hanover. I've been to Hanover. I've heard of Hanover. The other one, I haven't heard of it, so it must be small. That's not logical, but that is the heuristic. Recognition heuristic. Oh, he calls it the recognition heuristic. Let's ask ChatGPT really, really quick. Huh. So they're not comparable? They're just both heuristics? Okay. So I guess I was probably referring to a case like this as the availability heuristic, but it's just a recognition heuristic. But, okay, I got you. Alright, that's fantastic. Lalvani, here's an example of what we do. We learn about things like this. This is how the mind works. So when you're ready to stop lying to yourself about being rational, this is what you need to know. Oh, same to you, Steve, and everybody. And me. Most people will think it's Hanover because they have never heard of Bielefeld, and they're right. Okay, but they happen to be right. However, if I pose the same question to Germans, they are insecure and don't know which to choose. They've heard of both of them and tried to recall information. The same thing can be done in reverse. We have done studies with Daniel Gray Goldstein in which we ask Americans which city has more inhabitants, San Diego or San Antonio. About 2/3 of my former undergraduates at the University of Chicago, got the right answer, San Diego. Then we asked German students who know much less about San Diego and many of whom had never even heard of San Antonio. And we asked them the same question. What proportion of the German students do you think got the answer right? In our study, 100%. They hadn't heard of San Antonio, so they picked San Diego. This is an interesting case of a smart heuristic, where people with less knowledge can do better than people with more. Not seeing how this is like a reliably smart heuristic. The reason this works is because in the real... Oh, right, of course. Okay, right. The reason this works is because in the real world, there is a correlation between name recognition and things like populations. Duh, Eris. You have heard of a city because there is something happening there. It's not an indicator of certainty, but it's a good stimulus. In my group at the Max Planck Institute, just like our friend Ertor, who was at Max Planck Institute for Neurobiology, our friend Dr. G was at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development, where I work alongside a spectrum of researchers, several of whom are economists, who work on the same topics but ask a different kind of question. They say, that's all fine that you can demonstrate that you can get away with less knowledge, but can the recognition heuristic make money? In order to answer this question, we did a large study with the American and German stock markets, involving both laypeople and students of business and finance in both countries. We went to downtown Chicago and interviewed several hundred pedestrians. That's where I am, by the way. I'm not downtown, but I'm in the Chicago metro. We went to downtown Chicago and interviewed several hundred pedestrians. We gave them a list of stocks and asked them one question. Have you ever heard of this stock? Yes or no? Then we took the 10% of the stocks that had the highest recognition, which were all stocks in the S&P index, in the Standard & Poor's index, put them in the portfolio and let them go for half a year. As a control, we did the same thing with the same American pedestrians with German stocks. In this case, they had heard of very few of them. As a third control, we had German pedestrians in downtown Munich, where Torque is, um, in downtown Munich performed the same recognition ratings with German and American stocks. The question in this experiment is not how much money the portfolio makes, but whether it makes more money than some standards, of which we had 4. One consisted of randomly picked stocks, which is a tough standard. A second one contained the least recognized stocks, which is, according to the theory, an important standard, but shouldn't do as well. In the third, we had blue chip funds like Fidelity 2, I don't know what that is. And in the last, we had the market, the Dow, and its German equivalent. We let this run for 6 months, and after 6 months, the portfolios containing the highest recognized stocks by ordinary people outperformed the randomly picked stocks, the low recognition stocks, and in 6 out of 8 cases, the market and the mutual funds. Now, a lot of that was actually gibberish to me, so we're just going to keep going. Although this was an interesting study, one should of course be cautious. Because unlike in other experimental and real-world studies, we have a variable and very random environment. But what this study at least showed is that the recognition of ordinary citizens can actually beat out the performance of the market and other important criteria. The empirical evidence, of course, the background, is consumer behavior. In many situations, In many situations, when people in a supermarket choose between products, they go with the item with name recognition. Advertising by companies like Benetton exploits the use of the recognition heuristic. They give us no information about the product, but only increase name recognition. It has been a very successful strategy for the firm. I've never heard of Benetton, but I'm guessing I've heard of their, are they an advertising company? So then I would have heard of their clients or whatever. Of course, the reaction to this study, which is published in our book, Simple Heuristics That Make Us Work, has split the experts in 2 camps. One group said this can't be true, that it's all wrong, or it could never be replicated. Among them were financial advisors, who certainly didn't like the results. Another group of people said, this is no surprise, I knew it all along. The stock market's all rumor, recognition, and psychology. I want to put myself in that second group. Meanwhile, we have replicated these studies several times and found the same advantage of recognition in bull and bear markets, and also found that recognition among those who knew less did best of all in our studies. I would like to share these ideas with many others, to use psychological research, and to use what we know about how to facilitate people's understanding of uncertainties to help promote this old dream about getting an educated citizenship that can deal with uncertainties rather than denying their existence. Understanding the mind as a tool that tries to live in an uncertain world is an important challenge. And there's my answer, Lalvani, to what we're doing on this channel. Thank you, Dr. G. All right, let's see what happened. So, Lalvani asks, do you believe that consciousness exists, or is it just computation? Or Or is it just computation which can be controlled like what Neuralink is doing? Steve said, bro, we talked. Consciousness not exist, but I think with a Turkish eye, but I think questions like, why am I seeing this human in the mirror, seem to take us somewhere. Lalvani responded, do you know panpsychism, and what do you think about it? I know I'm distracting you, but I'm just curious. Absolutely, please do. That's what the chat is for, and I would just have to resist sometimes. Steve said, mind special for brain. Lalvani said, consciousness is IG, I don't know what IG is. Consciousness is not related to or restricted to human mind, but like related to life in general. Like, are plants alive, or what is different between living and non-living? Okay, great. So great. These are big, hard questions. And I think we underestimate sometimes. So here's my answer. What's his name? Tom Hartman? No, it's not Tom Hartman, is it? No. I would have noticed. No, it's not Tom Hartman. Donald Hoffman. Okay. Let's see. Theory of consciousness. What? Okay. Yeah, he goes hard. Is this like panpsychism? I mean, this is, Donald Hoffman is a real scientist. What exists in the objective world, independent of my perceptions, is a world of conscious agents, not a world of unconscious particles and fields. Those particles and fields are icons in the mental something interface. User interface. Mind universe interface. Oh, multimodal user interface of conscious agents, but they are not themselves. Blah, blah. All right, that's like a hard sentence, bro. Anyway, in any case, here's what matters, though. The consciousness of this mic has nothing to do with the language, emotional, sensation consciousness of me. That kind of experience. And by the way, I should say, consciousness is real in the sense of there is such a thing as some kind of awareness or experience. It's not real in the sense that it's an acting, that the consciousness itself is acting. So an agent can be conscious, meaning that agent has an awareness of things, is able to engage with things in ways that, gosh, no, it's too hard of a question, bro. It's the hardest, it's called the hard problem. So I'm too hungry, and I can't answer it. I also don't know. Yeah, I can't. Because I remember when I tried to answer with Steve, I ended up being dissatisfied with my answer. But hopefully you've gotten a little bit of a taste of the complexity. And I know I've contradicted myself because I'm right now referring to it as the hard problem, whereas normally I say it's the hard not problem, which is, I am quoting who? Okay, don't know. Okay. To just resolve that contradiction, the hard problem is, what is human experience? What does that mean that we experience some of our own activity? Like the mind experiences some of its own activity. And then what could that mean for a non-human? And could a human understand what it means for non-human? Probably not. Now, why I say it's not a hard problem is when people are like, oh, we gotta find some magical trait or entity to explain our impression that we have free will and total awareness. It's not a mic drop, but it's the best we're gonna get right now. Okay, thanks for hanging out again, Steve. Nice to meet you, Lalvani. And I'm gonna go. Oh, let's just update our reading list. So we made it to page 54. Boom. Only 116 days of reading 3 hours a day. I'm still thinking, me too, bro. And you know what? I don't have enough people to suggest this yet. But if I keep seeing you, Steve... Oh yeah, you keep thinking about why aren't you someone else? But that's a funny question to me. I'm gonna think about that. And we're also gonna get ChatGPT involved. Let's just throw that at ChatGPT right now. Alright, I'm just gonna let chat respond. No, you couldn't have been. Because then you wouldn't be you. If I'd been earlier, I would have been hunted with spears. You would have been. Yeah, let's listen to this. Where are my headphones? And then we're gonna close out, and this is going to be part of our ongoing conversation. Let's not have any expectation of resolving it now. We're gonna listen to this, and then we're gonna let you go to sleep.
Steve's question cuts right into the heart of the human itch. Let's pause and do this right. Step 1. Understand the instinct behind the question. Steve's not really asking a logical or metaphysical question first. He's expressing an animal-level feeling of this body equals me, and that body equals me. It's
Equals not me.
bodily boundedness. I control this body, not that one. Ownership of experience. I feel this hunger, not yours. Stable perspective. This point of view feels fixed to me and not floaty between beings. The instinct is a kind of evolved self-pointing arrow. This, me. That, not me. Without this instinct, the organism couldn't prioritize survival, protect its body, or navigate social space. So Steve's question arises because the brain doesn't just generate experience, it tags it as mine. And that tagging feels natural, inevitable, mysterious. Step 2, how that instinct shapes the question. Because the self-tag feels so solid, Steve assumes there's a reason or a cause why he got assigned to his body, and that it's meaningful or explainable that he is not you. But here's the deep move. There was no you floating around.
That's it.
Land. There was just a body and a...
That's the sentence that I'm highlighting to respond to you.
brain that grew a self-tag inside it. It's not that Steve could have been someone else. It's that whoever emerged in that body would necessarily feel like me. Step 3, possible answer. The why am I me and not you puzzle collapses when we realize organisms don't get assigned selves. Selves emerge locally. They are the organism's internal signature of ownership over its experience. Or super simple, the reason you are you is that a system arose that generates a you feeling inside a particular body. Stream-friendly line you can drop. Steve, here's the kicker. You're not a soul that got dropped into a body. You're a body that grew a me feeling. That's why you're you and not anyone else. Want me to help sharpen this in something a little more playful or poetic for live delivery? Let me know.
That's good. Esri dropped the mic there. That's awesome. But again, not saying it's resolved. Oh. Okay. Alright, well then definitely not resolved. Okay, but write in your journal, because I'm gonna go now. Well, I'll let you type out. I'll wait till you say bye. Are you saying bye? Or, oh, no, you're continuing. You're saying, but, yeah, it's a feeling, but... Yeah. This is gonna take like a year. To understand. If I understand your question correctly, and also if ChatGPT and I are right in about why you're asking the question, about where that's coming from, there are things you're gonna have to just get used to, like theory and concepts that are not yet popular about what the mind is. I know you're not a soul, but also I don't know that you're not a soul. Like, I know that you're fine with that sentence, but I mean, all of us, we have some mechanisms in us that see ourselves as souls. We have to. That's how we evolved. That's what we needed for our survival. So even me, I don't really know that I'm not a soul. Alright, you keep typing. I'm gonna check out your channel. Wait, how can I just click on your... maybe if I just do... Oh, no. What is this? If I do like that... Ah, here we go. Sweet. Hello, guys. This is... Bro, we have the exact same number of... Oh, no, I just lost a follower. Oh, you're not Turkish? Are you from... Oh, I don't know. Anyway. Lots of fun questions. Alright, hello guys. This is the official channel of Steve Gaming. In this channel we post latest tips and tricks and gameplay video. Very good. Let's subscribe, because we're trying to get into some games. Alright, cool. Okay. Oh. We're unsubscribing then. Unsubscribing from Jaren. Alright, Steve Gaming. Excuse me. All right. Excuse me. Steven Gaming TV. Oh, whoa! You're like basically a celeb. Oh, no, this is not you either. That's not you. Wait, can I just click in it from here? Oh, I can. Oh, okay. Go to channel. Oh, okay. My bad. Okay, here we go. Steve Gaming. Here's Steve chilling. Definitely chilling. Very good. This is Minecraft. Very good. Excellent. And this is great. Let's keep it up. Cool. I want to get in a game, so maybe we can talk about some of this stuff. Okay, very good. A lot of these words. Okay. Gachimuchi stage. Okay, and then this is you playing. This is you playing, right? Now, why do you have it tagged sexy? Is someone sexy in here, or is that just a tag? Oh, that looks sexy. Oh, I think there's all kinds of erotica. Because that shadow looks like a penis of that gender symbol there. Okay, I guess oh, whoa! Sexy! Alright, now I definitely get why you added sexy. I thought that was just a tag to get people interested. Alright, very good. Cool. Dude, I'm new. Dude, I'm not judging. I am not new. I have had my channel for, since what year is it? Or it doesn't matter what year it is now. I don't know why I always need to think of the current year in order to think of what year 2016. Almost 10 years. Anyway, and we need to make a game together. You and me. A very simple game for children that has to do with the mind, please. And I'll come out to Turkey, to Ankara or wherever, and we'll work on that at some point. I mean, not anytime soon, but or maybe we'll do, yeah. Anyway, so Steve, we're on our way to a beautiful friendship and partnership, and on that, I'm gonna let you go. And we also have the question of why am I seeing or hearing from this body and not another? Which I think is a non-question, but haven't figured out how to explain that yet. Alright, say goodbye to me. So I don't feel like I'm hanging up on you. Bye!